The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humans looked up at the night sky and wondered if anyone else was out there. They sent radio signals into the void. They built telescopes and listened for answers. They dreamed of the day when they would finally know they were not alone. That day came on a Tuesday morning in September. It was not the beautiful moment humanity had imagined. Commander Vorik stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the blue planet on his screen. His species, the Helix Dominion, had ruled 47 star systems for over 10,000 years. They had conquered dozens of primitive worlds. This one would be no different. His scanners showed a species that had barely touched their own moon. They had primitive satellites floating in orbit. Their weapons were laughable. Nuclear devices and chemical rockets. Vorik had seen children's toys more advanced than human technology. "Begin the cleansing," he ordered. "Standard protocol. Destroy their major population centers. They will surrender within hours." 12 warships moved into position above Earth. They did not send a warning. They did not attempt communication. In the Dominion's experience, primitive species understood only one language: pain. The first beam of light struck Sol at exactly 9:47 in the morning. The city held 11 million people. In 3 seconds, the heart of it became fire. Buildings that had stood for centuries turned to ash. People who had been drinking coffee, walking to work, holding their children's hands simply stopped existing. Captain Do-yoon was not on Earth when the attack began. He was stationed at a secret military base on the far side of the moon. The base was small, hidden from any observers, and home to humanity's most classified project. A ship that could travel faster than light. Do-yoon was eating breakfast when the alarm started. He dropped his spoon and ran to the command center. The screens showed Earth, his home. And it was burning. Seoul was gone. Tokyo was gone. Mumbai was a crater filled with smoke and screams. Snow Palo had vanished under a cloud of dust that could be seen from space. 12 alien ships hung in orbit like gods of death, and they were not stopping. Do-yoon watched the numbers climb. 1 million dead. 5 million. 20 million. The count moved so fast that his mind could not process it. These were not numbers. These were people, families, children. His sister lived in Seoul. His parents had retired to a small town outside the city. He tried to call them. The lines were dead. Everything was dead. "Sir," one of his officers said. Her name was Nari, and her voice was shaking. "What do we do?" Do-yoon looked at the secret ship sitting in their hangar. It was humanity's greatest achievement. Years of work. Billions of dollars. The first human vessel capable of reaching the stars. It was also completely unarmed. They had built it for exploration, not war. "We wait," he said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Calm, cold. "We watch. And we remember." On Earth, Admiral Yuna crawled out of a collapsed bunker in what used to be Bizane. She was bleeding from her head. Her uniform was torn. But she was alive, and she was very, very angry. The Dominion had made a mistake. They had attacked without warning because they believed humans would panic. They believed humans would scatter and beg for mercy. They did not understand what they were dealing with. Humans had survived ice ages. They had survived plagues that killed half their population. They had survived 2 world wars where they turned their own weapons against each other. They had looked into the face of extinction many times, and they had always answered the same way. They fought back. Yuna found a working radio and contacted every military installation that was still standing. The news was bad. Most of the world's capitals were destroyed. Billions were dead or dying. The aliens controlled the skies completely, but humans were still alive. Humans were still fighting. In the ruins of Mumbai, Soldiers fired missiles at alien ships that simply shrugged off the attacks. In what remained of Snow Paulo, ordinary people pulled survivors from the rubble, even as more fire rained from above. In the mountains of Switzerland, in the deserts of Australia, in the frozen reaches of Siberia, humanity refused to die. Dr. Hana was one of the survivors. She was a physicist who worked at a research facility deep underground. When the attack began, she was studying particle acceleration. When the shaking stopped, she emerged to find the world had changed forever, but she also found something else. An alien scout ship had crashed near her facility. Its pilot was dead, killed by the impact. But the ship itself was mostly intact. Hana walked around the wreckage with wide eyes. This was technology beyond anything she had ever seen. Engines that bent space itself. Weapons that drew power from sources she could not identify. Materials that her instruments could not even classify. She should have been afraid. She should have been overwhelmed. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Curiosity, hunger. The same hunger that had driven humans to discover fire, to build pyramids, to split atoms. We learned to fly in 60 years, she whispered to herself. Touching the alien metal, we went from horses to the moon in a single lifetime. How long will it take us to understand this? She began to work. The Dominion broadcast their demands across all frequencies. Surrender, submit, become slaves, or become extinct. It was the same message they had given to dozens of other species. It always worked. Admiral Yuna gathered the surviving world leaders in a secure underground location. They were frightened. Many wanted to accept the alien terms. Living as slaves was better than dying, they argued. Yuna listened to them all. Then she stood up and spoke. My family is dead, she said. My city is gone. Everything I loved burned while I watched. She paused. But I am not going to kneel. I am not going to beg. These creatures came to our home. They killed our children. They think we are weak because we are small. They think we will break because we are young. Her eyes were hard as stone. They are wrong. She looked at each leader in turn. We have one choice. We fight. We fight until we win, or until the last human being draws their last breath. There is no middle ground. There is no negotiation. They wanted a war. We will give them one they will never forget. The vote was unanimous. That night, Earth sent a message to the alien fleet. It was not a surrender. It was not a plea for mercy. It was a declaration of war, formal, official. Absolute. Commander Vorik received the message and laughed. A primitive species declaring war on the Helix Dominion. It was like watching an insect challenge a mountain. He would not be laughing for long. The Galactic Council had existed for over 50,000 years. It was a gathering of the oldest and most powerful species in the known universe. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched stars die and new ones be born. Nothing surprised them anymore, not until the message from Earth arrived. Elder Myra read the transmission 3 times. She was ancient even by the standards of her long-lived species. She had witnessed 10,000 wars, but she had never seen anything like this. A declaration of war, she said slowly, from a species that has never left their own star system. The council chamber was silent. Representatives from 100 different worlds stared at each other in confusion. It must be a translation error, someone suggested. They cannot be serious. Perhaps they do not understand what war means, another added. They are primitives. They probably think war is 2 groups throwing rocks at each other. Myra was not so sure. She had studied humans briefly. They were a strange species, violent, emotional, unpredictable. They had spent most of their history fighting each other over patches of dirt and abstract ideas. They were also surprisingly clever for such a young race. Send an observer, she ordered. I want to know exactly what is happening on that planet. Ambassador Torin was chosen for the mission. He belonged to a neutral species that specialized in diplomacy. He had visited hundreds of worlds and negotiated countless treaties. Surely he could make sense of this situation. He arrived on Earth 3 months after the initial attack. What he found there changed his understanding of the universe forever. The humans were not mourning. They were not hiding. They were building. Every factory on the planet had been converted to military production. Humans worked in 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. They built ships. They built weapons. They built things that should have taken decades to develop. Torin visited Dr. Hannah's laboratory and watched her work. She had taken apart the crashed alien scout ship piece by piece. She had studied every component. She had figured out how the engine worked in 6 weeks. It should have been impossible. Her species had not even discovered faster-than-light travel yet. How did you do this? Torin asked her. Hannah looked up from her work. There were dark circles under her eyes. She had not slept properly in months. We had motivation, she said simply. Amazing what you can accomplish when someone burns your cities. Torin watched humans train for combat. Sergeant Taiho led a unit of soldiers through exercises that made no sense to the ambassador. They practiced fighting in darkness. They practiced fighting in water. They practiced fighting with no weapons at all, using only their hands and feet. Why do you train like this? Torin asked. Space combat is fought with ships and missiles. Taiho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Space combat is fought however we decide to fight it. The aliens have rules. We do not. On the moon, Captain Do-yoon oversaw the construction of humanity's first warship. It was not elegant like the alien vessels. It was ugly and brutal, covered in armor and weapons. The engineers had taken Dr. Hannah's research and combined it with human technology. The result was something new, something dangerous. Lieutenant Nari tested the fighter craft that would accompany the main fleet. She pushed them harder than any test pilot should. 3 times she nearly died. 3 times she ejected at the last moment and demanded another ship. You are going to kill yourself, Do-yeon told her. Maybe, she replied. But first, I am going to kill a lot of them. Torin sent his first report to the council. He wrote that humans were preparing for war on a scale the galaxy had never seen. He wrote that they had reverse-engineered alien technology in months instead of centuries. He wrote that their soldiers trained to fight in conditions that would kill most other species. The council did not believe him. Impossible, Elder Myra said. No primitive species could advance that quickly. He must be exaggerating. But Torin was not exaggerating. If anything, he was understating the situation. Humans did not think like other species. When other species faced a problem, they studied it carefully. They formed committees. They debated solutions for years before taking action. Humans simply acted. They tried things. They failed. They tried again. They failed better. And eventually, they succeeded. The Dominion sent reinforcements to Earth. Commander Vorik received 50 more warships. He was ordered to finish the conquest and move on to more important matters. Vorik was confident. The humans had fought back with surprising determination, but they could not possibly match Dominion technology. They were insects. Clever insects, perhaps, but insects nonetheless. He broadcast another message to Earth. Surrender now, he said, and we will be merciful. Continue to resist, and we will destroy every last one of you. Admiral Yuna received the message. She smiled. Tell them we received their offer, she said. Tell them we have a counteroffer. Her communications officer looked confused. What counteroffer, Admiral? Unconditional surrender, Yuna said. Their surrender. To us. The Dominion thought it was a joke. They laughed at the arrogant primitives who did not understand their situation. Torin sent a second report to the council. This one was shorter. It contained only 4 words. I made a mistake. He had studied humans more closely now. He had learned their history. He had learned about their wars and their plagues and their constant struggle against extinction. He had learned about the ice ages they survived by sheer stubbornness. He had learned about the diseases that killed millions while humans simply kept going. Most importantly, he had learned about their concept of vengeance. Other species fought wars for resources or territory. Humans fought wars for those things too. But they also fought wars for reasons that seemed insane to the rest of the galaxy. Pride, honor, revenge. The Dominion had killed billions of humans. They had destroyed cities that had stood for centuries. They had murdered children and elders and everyone in between. They did not understand what they had created. Sergeant Tayo gathered his soldiers for a final briefing. They were shipping out tomorrow. The first wave of the human counterattack. They think we are animals, he told them. They think we are primitives. They think they can burn our homes, and we will simply accept it. He paused. They are about to learn something important about our species. We remember. We always remember. And we never forgive. The soldiers cheered. It was not a happy sound. It was the sound of a species that had been pushed too far. Dr. Hannah finished her final project. A weapon based on alien technology, but designed by human minds. It was terrible and beautiful, and completely unprecedented. What do you call it? Admiral Yuna asked. Hannah thought for a moment. Soul, she said quietly. I call it Soul. 1 year after the attack, humanity was ready. Their fleet was small compared to the Dominion. Their technology was still inferior in many ways. But they had something no other species possessed. They had rage. And they had patience. And they had the cold, burning determination of a species that had already survived extinction once and would not do so again. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. Commander Vorik was having dinner when the alarm started. He dropped his food and ran to the bridge. What he saw there made no sense. Human ships. 47 of them. They had appeared from nowhere, jumping out of faster-than-light travel directly into the middle of his fleet. That alone should have been impossible. FTL jumps required careful calculations. Exiting so close to other ships was suicide. But humans, Vorik was beginning to understand, did not care about such things. All ships battle formation? He screamed. Destroy them. The Dominion fleet was larger. 62 warships against 47. Their technology was superior. Their weapons were more powerful. Their shields were stronger. By every logical measure, they should have won easily. They did not win. Captain Do-Yun commanded the human fleet from the bridge of humanity's first warship. The ship was called Vengeance. He had chosen the name himself. All ships, he said calmly, execute attack pattern Soul. The human ships scattered like leaves in a storm. They did not form neat lines like the Dominion expected. They did not follow predictable patterns. They moved in ways that seemed random, but were actually carefully choreographed. Chaos. Lieutenant Nari led the fighter squadrons. Her small craft weaved between the massive Dominion warships, targeting weak points that Dr. Hannah had identified in the captured alien technology. Shields, engines, weapon systems. Every shot was precise. Every attack was devastating. The Dominion had never faced anything like this. Their tactics were ancient and refined over thousands of years. Attack in formation. Overwhelm with superior firepower. Force the enemy to retreat or die. Humans did not retreat. Humans did not follow the rules of galactic warfare. Humans did something far worse. They adapted. When Dominion shields proved too strong for conventional weapons, Human engineers modified their missiles mid-battle. When Dominion formations adjusted, human captains changed tactics within seconds. When all else failed, human ships simply rammed their enemies, sacrificing themselves to create openings for their comrades. Vorik watched his fleet crumble. Ship after ship went dark. Explosions lit up the void like fireflies. His communications were filled with screaming and chaos. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They are primitives." His second-in-command grabbed his arm. "Sir, we need to retreat. We cannot win this battle." Vorik looked at the tactical display. 30 of his ships were destroyed. More were damaged beyond repair. The humans had lost only 16 vessels. The battle was not even close. "Fall back," he ordered. "All ships fall." He never finished the sentence. A human boarding craft slammed into the side of his flagship. Plasma torches cut through the hull. Atmosphere rushed out into space. And then the humans came. Sergeant Taiho led the boarding team. His soldiers wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed for close combat. They moved through the alien ship like ghosts, killing everything in their path. The Dominion crew tried to fight back. They outnumbered the humans. They knew their ship better than any invader could. But they had never faced human soldiers before. Humans fought in ways that shocked the aliens. They used the darkness. They used the chaos. They used their environment. When they ran out of ammunition, they used knives. When they lost their knives, they used their hands. One soldier, his armor shattered and his weapons gone, killed 3 aliens by smashing their heads against the walls. Vorik sealed himself in the bridge and prepared to die. He was a warrior of the Dominion. He would not surrender to PR, IMITIV, ES. The door exploded inward. Taiho walked through the smoke, his armor covered in alien blood. He looked at Vorik with eyes that held no mercy. "You burned Sol," Taiho said. "My daughter lived in Sol." Vorik raised his weapon. Taiho moved faster than any creature had a right to move. One moment the alien commander was standing. The next moment he was on the floor, his weapon across the room, Taiho's boot on his throat. "I want you to know something," Taiho said quietly. "Before the end, I want you to understand what you created." Vorik struggled to breathe. "We will destroy you," he gasped. "The Dominion will never stop. More fleets will come." Taiho smiled. It was the same smile he had given Ambassador Torin. Cold, patient, terrifying. "We are counting on it." The Battle of Earth's orbit lasted 11 hours. When it ended, the Dominion fleet was gone. Not retreated, gone. 0 ships survived. The humans had captured 6 vessels intact. The rest were debris floating in the endless dark. Across the galaxy, species watched the footage in stunned silence. The broadcasts showed everything. Human ships dancing through enemy formations. Human soldiers boarding alien vessels and fighting hand-to-hand in the vacuum of space. Human pilots laughing as they died, taking enemies with them. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Elder Myra looked at the images on her screen and felt something she had not felt in thousands of years. Fear. "What have we done?" She whispered. "What has the Dominion awakened?" Ambassador Torin presented his final report. He stood before the council and spoke for 3 hours. He explained everything he had learned about humans, their history, their nature, their impossible determination. "They evolved as persistence hunters," he said. "Their ancestors chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They did not need to be faster or stronger. They simply needed to never stop. And they have never stopped. Not once in their entire history." He showed them images of human civilization, their wars, their disasters, their countless brushes with extinction. And always, always, They survived. They rebuilt. They continued. When they are wounded, Torin said, they do not retreat like sensible species. They become angry. They become patient. They become something far more dangerous than any predator I have ever studied. Elder Myra spoke. Surely they will accept peace now. They have won their battle. They have proven themselves. We can negotiate. Torin shook his head slowly. You do not understand. The Dominion killed billions of their people. They destroyed their cities. They murdered their children. He paused. Humans do not forgive. They do not forget. They do not stop. Then what do they want? Torin looked at the ancient leader with something like pity. They want the Dominion to cease to exist. Not defeated. Not conquered. Extinct. And based on what I have seen, I believe they will succeed. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species shouted at each other. Alliances formed and broke within minutes. Some wanted to support the Dominion. Others wanted to stay far away from the conflict. A few quietly began preparing their own defenses, just in case in the end, the Council decided to do nothing. They would watch. They would wait. They would see how this impossible war played out. Admiral Una received news of the Council's decision. She smiled. Good, she said. We do not need their help. We do not want their help. This is between us and the Dominion now. She looked at the stars on her display. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was gathering more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. They would come back. They always came back, but this time, humanity would be waiting. All ships, she ordered. Prepare for the next phase. We are not defending anymore. Her eyes were hard as diamonds. We are hunting. The Helix Dominion had ruled 47 star systems for 10,000 years. They had conquered dozens of species. They had never lost a war. That changed the day humans arrived. The first Dominion colony fell without warning. Human ships appeared in orbit, destroyed the defense fleet in hours, and landed ground forces before anyone could call for help. When Dominion reinforcements arrived 3 days later, they found only ashes and a message painted on the ruins. Sol remembers. Admiral Una coordinated the campaign from her flagship. She did not sleep much anymore. There was too much work to do. Too many battles to plan. Too many Dominion worlds to burn. Some might call this revenge, Captain Doyoun said to her one evening. Some might say we have already won. The Dominion will never threaten Earth again. Una looked at him with tired eyes. They killed my children, Doyoun. They killed everyone's children. This is not revenge. She turned back to her maps. This is justice. The humans advanced through Dominion space like a disease. They did not conquer in the traditional sense. They did not occupy planets or install governments. They simply destroyed. Military bases became craters. Shipyards became debris. Any facility that could produce weapons or ships was reduced to nothing. Dr. Hana led the scientific division of the war effort. She had changed since the attack on Earth. The curious scientist was gone. In her place was something harder, something colder. Her laboratory produced weapons that made the galaxy tremble. Missiles that could track ships through FTL jumps. Bombs that collapsed stars into tiny temporary black holes. Viruses that ate through alien metal like acid. The Galactic Council banned her name from official records. They were afraid that if other species learned her methods, the galaxy would tear itself apart. Hana did not care. She had one goal: end the Dominion. Everything else was secondary. Sergeant Taiho became a legend among both humans and aliens. He led ground assaults on heavily defended worlds. He freed human prisoners from Dominion labor camps. He killed so many enemies that the Dominion put a bounty on his head worth more than most planets. He found it funny. They think money will stop me? He said to his soldiers. They still do not understand. This is not about money. This is not about power. This is about making sure no one ever does this to anyone again. His soldiers followed him without question. They had all lost someone in the attack. They all had names to avenge. Lieutenant Nari continued to fly. She had lost count of her kills long ago. Her fighter was covered in marks representing destroyed enemy ships. She had started painting the names of burned cities on her hull: Seoul, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Moscow, London, New York. She ran out of room. Dominion tried everything to stop the human advance. They sent their largest fleets. Humans destroyed them. They fortified their planets. Humans found ways through. They offered peace treaties. Humans ignored them. Ambassador Torin watched the war with growing horror. He had predicted this outcome. He had warned the council. No one had listened. They will not stop, he told Elder Mera during a private meeting. I have studied humans extensively now. They have a concept called total war. It means they do not fight until they are satisfied. They fight until their enemy no longer exists. Myra looked old, tired, afraid. There must be something we can do. Some way to negotiate. There is nothing, Torin said simply. The Dominion started this war with genocide. Humans will end it the same way. The Dominion's allies began to abandon them. Species that had supported the ancient empire for thousands of years quietly withdrew their troops. They sent messages to the human fleet. We were not involved. We do not want war with you. Please continue past our borders. Admiral Yuna accepted their withdrawals. She had no interest in fighting anyone except the Dominion, but she made sure each species understood one thing very clearly. We remember who stood with our enemies, she told them. We remember who helped them. We will not attack you today, but if you ever threaten humanity again, we will remember that too. The species understood. Most of them began dismantling their own military forces. Better to be weak and peaceful than strong and a potential threat to humans. 3 years into the war, human forces reached the Dominion's core systems. These were the oldest and most developed worlds in the Empire. Billions of aliens lived there. Massive defense fleets protected every planet. It did not matter. Captain Do-hyun led the assault on the Dominion's second largest world. The battle lasted 2 weeks. When it ended, the planet's infrastructure was destroyed. Its fleets were gone. Its population was given a choice. Leave or die. Most left. They became refugees, scattered across the galaxy, telling stories of the terrible humans who had destroyed everything they knew. A few tried to fight. They did not last long. Elder Mera made one last attempt to end the war. She contacted Admiral Yuna directly, using emergency channels that had not been used in centuries. Please, she begged. The Dominion is broken. They cannot threaten you anymore. Surely this can end. Yuna listened patiently. Then she spoke. Elder, I respect your position. I understand you want peace. But you do not understand what they did to us. She paused. They did not just attack our cities. They did not just kill our people. They tried to erase us from existence. They wanted to make it as if humanity had never been. And you want to do the same to them? No, Yuna said. I want them to know that they failed. I want them to know that the species they tried to exterminate became the instrument of their destruction. I want the last thing they see to be human ships in their skies, human soldiers on their ground, and human justice in their hearts. Myra was silent for a long moment. You are not the victims anymore, she finally said. You are becoming the monsters. Yuna smiled sadly. Perhaps, but we are monsters that will never allow what happened to us to happen to anyone else. We are monsters that will protect the weak and punish the cruel. We are monsters that the galaxy should be grateful to have. Her eyes hardened. And we are monsters that were created by the Dominion's own actions. They have no one to blame but themselves. The final assault on the Dominion homeworld began on the 4th anniversary of the attack on Earth. Every human who could fight was there. Every ship that could fly. Every soldier who had survived the long campaign. The sky above the Dominion homeworld turned black with human vessels. The population below looked up and knew that their time had come. Admiral Una broadcast one final message to the planet. 4 years ago, you attacked our home. You killed our children. You burned our cities. You thought you were dealing with primitives. You thought you were dealing with prey. She paused. You were wrong. And now you will understand exactly how wrong you were. The assault began. The Helix Dominion's homeworld burned for 3 days. When the fires finally died, there was nothing left. The ancient palaces where rulers had commanded empires for 10,000 years were ash. The great libraries that held the knowledge of conquered civilizations were rubble. The monuments celebrating Dominion victories over countless species were dust in the wind. The Helix Dominion, which had terrorized the galaxy for longer than most species had existed, was gone, not defeated, not conquered, erased from existence, just as they had tried to erase humanity. Admiral Una stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the last fires die. She felt nothing, not triumph, not satisfaction, just emptiness. The war was over, but the dead would never come back. What now? Captain Do-yoon asked quietly. Una turned away from the window. Now we go home. Now we rebuild. Now we make sure this never happens again. The journey back to Earth took 2 months. Human ships traveled through systems that had once belonged to the Dominion. Empty systems now. Ghost systems. Monuments to what happened when you attacked the wrong species. The Galactic Council sent representatives to meet the returning fleet. They were nervous, afraid. Humanity had just destroyed one of the oldest powers in the galaxy. What would they do next? Who would they target? Ambassador Torin was among the representatives. He had studied humans for years now. He had watched them transform from victims to victors. He understood them better than any other alien alive. They will not attack anyone, he told the other representatives. They have achieved what they wanted. Justice, vengeance, safety. They will go home now. How can you be sure? One of them asked. Torin smiled slightly. Because I know them. They fight when threatened. They destroy when provoked. But they do not seek power for its own sake. They just want to be left alone. Earth had changed during the war. The burned cities had been rebuilt. New towers rose where old ones had fallen. New parks grew where craters had scarred the land. Humanity had taken its pain and transformed it into determination. But the scars remained. Memorials stood in every city that had been attacked. Stone walls covered with names. Millions of names. Billions of names. The dead remembered forever. Admiral Una retired from the military the day she returned to Earth. She had given enough. She had lost enough. She was tired. Captain Do-yoon took her place as the commander of Earth's defense forces. He was older now, harder, but he had not forgotten why he fought. To protect, to defend, to make sure no one would ever attack humanity again. Dr. Hannah returned to pure research. She had spent years building weapons of destruction. Now she wanted to build something else. Something better. Her first post-war project was a device that could detect hostile fleet movements across thousands of light years. Early warning, preparation, defense. She would never build another weapon. But she would make sure humanity always saw danger coming. Sergeant Taiho could not stop fighting. He had tried. He had returned to Earth and visited the memorial where his daughter's name was carved. He had stood there for hours, saying nothing, feeling everything. But there were still battles to fight. Not against the Dominion anymore. They were gone. But across the galaxy, other species suffered under other tyrants. Other empires attacked other innocent worlds. Other children died while the powerful stood by. Teo formed a unit of volunteers. Humans who could not forget how to fight. Humans who needed a purpose. They traveled the galaxy, helping the helpless, protecting the weak, punishing the cruel. They became legends. The humans who came from nowhere and disappeared into nothing. The soldiers who asked for no payment and expected no thanks. The warriors who fought because fighting was what they were made to do. Lieutenant Nari flew patrol routes around Earth. The skies were safe now. No alien fleet would dare approach. But she flew anyway. She needed to be up there. She needed to watch. Sometimes late at night, she turned off her communications and simply floated among the stars. She thought about everyone she had lost, everyone she had killed, everything that had happened. She did not regret it. She would do it all again. But she was tired too. So very tired. 5 years after the war ended, the Galactic Council invited humanity to join their organization. It was an unprecedented offer. Species usually waited centuries to be considered. Humanity had been known to the galaxy for less than a decade, but everyone understood why the offer was made. Fear, respect, recognition. Admiral Yuna came out of retirement to lead the human delegation. She was old now. Gray hair, lined face. But her eyes were still sharp. Her voice was still strong. The council chamber was enormous. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the seats. All of them watched as humans entered for the first time. Elder Myra stood to greet them. She had survived the war. She had watched everything that happened. She had learned lessons she would never forget. "Welcome," she said formally. "The Galactic Council recognizes humanity as a member species. You have earned your place among the stars." Yuna nodded politely. She looked around the chamber at all the faces watching her, some friendly, some afraid, some simply curious. "We thank the Council for this recognition," she said. "But I want to make something clear. We did not fight our war for recognition. We did not destroy the Dominion for power. We did not come here seeking conquest or tribute." She paused. "We came here because we want peace, real peace. Not the peace of the powerful standing on the weak. Not the peace of threats and domination. The peace of species treating each other with respect and dignity." She looked directly at Elder Mira. "We learned something during our war. We learned that no one is coming to save you. We learned that if you want to survive, you must be strong enough to protect yourself. We learned that the universe is dangerous and cruel, and does not care about your hopes or dreams." Her voice softened slightly. "But we also learned something else. We learned that even in the darkness, there is light. We learned that even in despair, there is hope. We learned that a species pushed to the edge of extinction can rise up and become something greater than they ever imagined." She smiled. It was a tired smile, a sad smile. But it was also genuine. We are humanity. We are survivors. We are fighters. We are dreamers. We will never forget what was done to us. But we will not let it define us. We will build. We will grow. We will reach for the stars not as conquerors, but as explorers. Not as destroyers, but as creators. The chamber was silent. Every species watched. Every representative listened. "And if anyone ever threatens us again," Yuna added quietly, "we will remind them why that is a very bad idea." She took her seat. The chamber erupted in applause. Some species cheered. Others simply nodded in respect. A few remained silent, still processing what they had witnessed. Ambassador Torrin watched from the observer gallery. He had spent years studying humans. He had written dozens of reports about them. He had warned the galaxy about what they could become. Now, watching their leader speak of peace and hope while carrying the weight of billions of deaths on her shoulders, he finally understood them completely. They were not monsters. They were not saints. They were simply human, capable of terrible destruction and beautiful creation, capable of endless cruelty and infinite kindness, capable of anything and everything, and the galaxy would never be the same. On Earth, a child was born. Her parents named her Una, after the Admiral. She opened her eyes for the first time and looked at the stars through her hospital window. Somewhere out there, a new saying had begun to spread among the species of the galaxy. It passed from trader to diplomat, to soldier to civilian. It became a warning, a prayer, a truth. Never attack Earth. They remember. And they do not forgive. But there was also another saying, a newer one that spoke not of fear, but of respect. The humans survived. The humans rebuilt. The humans became something greater than anyone expected. And if they could do it, perhaps anyone could. Perhaps there was hope after all.